ISIS actually has their own magazine. Weird, I know. And they took some time in their most recent issue to explain why it is they hate the West. So let me give you some of their direct quotes here, and then we'll go further and we'll continue to break it down. So first of all, they say, quote, "You reject the oneness of Allah, claiming that he has a son. You fabricate lies against his prophets and messengers, and you indulge in all manner of devilish practices. In the case of the atheist fringe, we hate you and wage war against you because you disbelieve in the existence of your Lord and Creator. We hate you for your crimes against Islam and wage war against you to punish you for your transgressions against our religion. The bombs, the wars, the drone attacks on Muslim countries." They continue, "The fact is, even if you were to stop bombing us, imprisoning us, torturing us, vilifying us, and usurping our lands, we would continue to hate you because our primary reason for hating you will not cease to exist until you embrace Islam." Now, Inquisitor breaks it down further here. They go on to explain, though the Mirror, who originally published this article, breaks the ISIS diatribe against the West down to 6 simple points, it actually goes into far greater specifics, such as bashing Western thinkers like Charles Darwin, Sigmund Freud, and Karl Marx, ranting against coffee drinkers, and criticizing Western women whom they argue should be docile and submissive. Okay, so you have a pretty clear picture as to what they believe. Now remember, what I was quoting there to you, that's the portions that they translated, and that's ISIS in their own words. So they say it's because you reject Islam, it's because you're infidels, it's because you're the atheist fringe and you don't accept your Lord. It's because of that we're going to attack you. Now, like I said, at separate parts they say, like, quote, this is one of the reasons they hate us. The bombs, the wars, the drone attacks on Muslim countries. So that's another reason. But then they also go on to say, yeah, but even if you stop doing that, we'd still fucking hate you because it is our ideology and it is our religious fundamentalist belief that our voodoo is true, your voodoo is false, and therefore we have a right to kill you because our voodoo laws say we can kill you. So make no mistake about it, what we're talking about here is true Kool-Aid drinkers. They're actually brainwashed. They actually believe their asshole interpretation of Islam, and nobody should deny that. So in other words, when people say about ISIS or about al-Qaeda that, oh, come on now, this has nothing to do with religion. That's not true. They're telling you, yes, this does have something to do with religion. I get it that it's hard for people to wrap their minds around the idea that people could actually believe in such comical books as if they're holy. But they do. I mean, we actually can debunk them fairly quickly because there's flat-out unscientific claims in there. Like, for example, in Islam, they say that semen comes from your backbone. That's not true. They say there's talking feet and talking hands. Also ridiculous. Muhammad splits the moon. You know, in some hadiths, they say women are mentally deficient. So, I mean, these are things that are just, you know, comical. And we can disprove it, but there are some people who still hold on to it and still believe it. Now, that's obviously not to say that all Muslims or all religious believers are terrorists. That's obviously not the case. Some people, you know, blow off portions of the Holy Book. Other people cherry pick the good parts of the Holy Book. But bottom line is, when it comes to ISIS, the idea that, oh, it has nothing to do with religion, that's not true. They're telling you, no, this does have something to do with religion, and this is in their own words. This isn't somebody putting a spin on it. This isn't, you know, somebody who has an agenda. Oh, this is what I'm going to do. No. This is in their own words. It's from their fucking magazine. Okay, now let me give you some more here because what this reminded me of is Osama bin Laden's letter to America. So this was obviously after the terror attacks on 9/11. Osama bin Laden, leader of al-Qaeda, and he went on to explain in his own words, addressing this to, you know, regular people in America. Hey, why do I hate you and why do we hate you? Well, let me lay it out for you. So here are some excerpts from his letter to America. He says, quote, The first thing that we are calling you to is Islam. Again, it has something to do with religion. He continues. The religion of the unification of God, of freedom from associating partners with him, and rejection of this, of complete love of him, the exalted, of complete submission to his laws, and of the discarding of all the opinions, orders, theories, and religions which contradict with the religion he sent down to his prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Now, bin Laden continues. He says, "You attacked us in Palestine. The blood pouring out of Palestine must be equally revenged. You attacked us in Somalia. You supported the Russian atrocities against us in Chechnya, the Indian oppression against us in Kashmir, and the Jewish aggression against us in Lebanon. What happens in Guantanamo is a historical embarrassment to America and its values, and it screams into your faces, you hypocrites. What is the value of your signature on any agreement or treaty?" Talking about very clearly how the U.S. violated international law with Guantanamo and violated it in other respects. He continues, "We call you to be a people of manners, principles, honor, and purity, to reject the immoral acts of fornication, homosexuality, intoxicants, and gambling." Okay, so now I'm going to leave links to both of these articles in the video description box, and you guys can read it for yourself. You can read ISIS in their own words, why they hate us. You can read bin Laden's letter to America. And what you're going to find is they're pretty clear and they're pretty consistent. It is a mix of factors. So, and I actually think bin Laden gave more geopolitical reasons than did ISIS this time around. But you have a mix of factors, and the mix includes, hey, your foreign policy against us, what's happening in Palestine, what you did to Muslims at Guantanamo Bay, and all these other grievances that they point to. And then what you'll find is the overarching factor is, and many of them point out, well, even if you stop doing that, we're still going to tag you. So we still hate you, and we hate you because you haven't accepted Islam, and you haven't accepted our fundamentalist interpretation of Islam, so you're disbelievers, and we have permission, we have carte blanche. In fact, it is the moral thing to do to strike out against you and kill you. So that's the main breakdown. Those are the factors. Yes, there is a geopolitical angle. Yes, you can argue certain things play a role. In some cases, you could argue it's, they're psychopaths. Certain individuals are psychopaths. You can argue that in a place that had more opportunity, there wouldn't be as many jihadists. You could argue if it wasn't for the missteps of foreign policy, there wouldn't be as many jihadists. If it wasn't for the occupation, there wouldn't be as many jihadists. But there's no denying that, yes, there is an overarching religious argument. These are religious terrorists. And nobody should say, hey, this has nothing to do with religion, because that's simply not true. And then the question becomes, well, how do we fight back against this? I would argue, number one, obviously, you have to defeat them when it comes to ideas and concepts. So, yeah, directly counter-argue their propaganda and their nonsense mythology with facts. And the more sunlight there is on their ideology and on how their fundamentalism is dumb, the fewer fundamentalists there will be. So directly attack the problem of fundamentalist Islam and explain, no, I actually believe that people are going to think enough about this and listen to the arguments enough to go, oh, yeah, that actually is kind of bullshit. And at the very least, just become whatever, less interested in that, or at best, perhaps even leave the religion. Now, I know that's hard in so many countries because they kill you if you say, I'm an apostate. But if you change the hearts and minds, bottom line is you wouldn't have nearly as many terrorists. So point number one is, yes, directly attack fundamentalist Islam in the realm of ideas, and you can defeat it that way. You could argue point number two is, I don't think the U.S. has done a good job fighting this militarily, because there are more jihadists now than there were when we started. So if you want to, for example, give humanitarian aid and give support to, say, the Kurds who are fighting ISIS, give support to some Shia militias who aren't committing atrocities who are fighting ISIS, fine, I'm fine with that too. So yes, there are some people who are TFG, dog, too far gone, and it's a reasonable thing to say that, they need to be taken out by somebody. I just argue not the West, because then that gets retaliatory attacks and people want retribution, and we've shown that we suck at this. So let other people do that. That's point number two. And then point number three is, do the right thing policy-wise. Do the right thing policy-wise. So understand that while it is clear this has a lot to do with religion, clearly, it's also clear that it would be much harder for al-Qaeda and ISIS to recruit if we take away the fuel of the stupid wars and the torture and the occupation. Because, think about it. Usually, or in many cases, the way they hook in people to become part of the Taliban or al-Qaeda or ISIS is there has to be some kind of grievance there, and then they hook them in, and then they can brainwash them into the ideology. But if the original grievance isn't there, it's much harder to create somebody who's going to do monstrous things. So, and that's not all cases. Sometimes you're just brainwashed from when you're young and there doesn't need to be a grievance. But in many cases, there's a grievance. So, our drones, for example, have a 90% failure rate. We get the wrong people 90% of the time with our drones. Well, if you blow up an aunt, an uncle, or a baby, or a grandma, well, obviously, any normal person might look at that and go, that's it. I'm going to do revenge. I'm going to do retribution. I'm going to do attacks against the West. Who's fighting them? Oh, okay, only these groups are fighting them. I guess I'm joining ISIS. I guess I'm joining al-Qaeda. I guess I'm, going to be involved in that. People who otherwise wouldn't give a fuck, don't think about America, it's whatever, now all of a sudden would be anti-American if we fuck up that badly and repeatedly. I mean, we killed hundreds of thousands of civilians in Iraq. You don't think you're going to further radicalize the population if you do that? Of course you're going to do that. So if you take away the fuel that adds to the narrative, yes, you're going to have fewer jihadists. And this isn't just opinion. This is fact, man. I mean, there are more jihadists today than there were when we started the war on terror. The whole point of the war on terror was we need to limit the number of jihadists, limit the number of terrorists, if not eliminate terrorism. Well, it's gotten worse since we started. And a lot of that has been fueled by Guantanamo. A lot of that has been fueled by the Iraq War. A lot of that has been fueled by our drones. And yes, as people repeatedly point out who are part of that group, a lot of it does have to do with the occupation in Palestine. I mean, if you were to make an actual... Now, granted, there are some people who will say, never, 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 the Jews need to be totally off the land and there can't be a state of Israel. You're never going to convince those people. But it's much harder to convince many people if, let's say you do a two-state deal, Palestine is internationally recognized, you have your borders, I'm fine with building a giant fucking wall down the middle of it, and then what's the argument? You can't say, oh, they're all so bad, I mean, look at what they did. No, hold on now. Palestine is a state. We did a peace deal. It's recognized by the UN. What are you talking about? Yeah, but the Jews, they're bad. You know how the Jews are. But they did a peace deal. They did a deal. Palestine exists. It's much harder to get people to go, I'm going to join the bad guys if we show we're reasonable. We're not going to torture because that's against international law. We're not going to kill 90% the wrong people with drones because that's stupid and that's immoral. We're not going to do dumb wars that kill hundreds of thousands of people because that's wrong, because that means we're the bad guy in that scenario. So if we take away our ills, it makes it harder for them to recruit. As ISIS points out, look, even if you stop, we're still going to attack you. Yeah. And they say it's because of our religion. Yeah. But it's harder for them to recruit people if people can look at the West and go, they're not that bad. I mean, look at what we did. We rebuilt our enemies after World War II. That was a genius idea. Because you do that and all of a sudden people who went, oh, these fucking monsters, look at what they did. Now all of a sudden you have to weigh the evidence. You have to go, okay, look, firebombing at Dresden, oh, fucked up. But you know what? They rebuilt. They came in after and they said, okay, look, we won, but now common humanity kicks in and we're going to help rebuild and we're going to make this better. Imagine if we took a similar mindset and a similar approach to the Middle East. You're going to take the vast swaths of the population who are either on the fence or becoming more and more anti-American as a result of our actions. You're going to take them and you're going to make them go, oh, you know what? They're actually not that bad. They came and they rebuilt the mosque. They came and they rebuilt the school. They came and they added some infrastructure, and now they're gone. They didn't come and do it and take over, and we're going to dominate you and we're going to occupy you. No. So this is the reasonable approach, I think, to dealing with ISIS. Yes, we can do our part and should do our part in having the correct policies in place. That is true. But then also nobody should deny, hey, this is an overarching religious issue. And what I find online today is that you have two rigid camps, man. And it's almost at the point where I laugh anytime I see somebody in one camp or the other start talking, because it's always the same answer for one camp or the other camp. So for one camp, they go, it's always has to do with the United States. It's always U.S. foreign policy. It's always imperialism. Anybody who's ever attacked the U.S. or had Western thoughts, these are all people who have some sort of reasonable political grievance. No, that's not true. In some cases, that's true, but that's not across the board true. And then the other camp is, no, it is always Islam. It's always the religion. There's no such thing as an attack based on retribution or revenge, based on missteps in U.S. foreign policy. They're just barbarians and savages who believe the ideology, and to even discuss a U.S. role in this is being an apologist. You're a Muslim apologist. So, and people are so entrenched in those fucking camps that when somebody comes along and gives nuance like me, you're painted by one camp as, oh my God, all he does is blame Islam and blame religion. And you're painted by the other camp as, oh my God, all he does is blame the West and blame imperialism when it's the religion. Well, no, I'm here to tell you it's both things, and both roles are super important. ISIS tells you, yes, I'm doing this because of my religion. I'm doing this because of my fundamentalist interpretation of Islam. And you don't believe, so you're evil. They tell you that. But what I'm telling you is, it is also true that if they didn't have the other grievances that were hooks to other people to recruit, there wouldn't be as many of them. So both things are true. Let's be adults and let's embrace nuance because it's right.